So bulking and cutting are two different strategies when it comes to building muscle or burning fat. Now I'm going to explain to you guys why meal timing is so important when it comes to trying to optimize the bulking and cutting processes, and how you can plan your meals throughout the day so you can take your physique to the next level. So let's get into it. What's going on, guys? It's Trainer Neil. So let's talk about how you should eat when you're on a bulk. So step one is to eat 5 meals a day. Now there are 5 opportunities for protein synthesis to occur, and you want to be able to maximize those 5 opportunities. If you're fasting or you're skipping meals, then you're not going to be able to maximize those opportunities. And that's why I say to eat 5 meals a day so you can build the most amount of muscle mass. Now step 2 is to eat a majority of your calories around your training time. And that's because when you're training, your body requires the nutrients. So that's why I say for breakfast, you should have a big breakfast with a high amount of protein and a high amount of carbs. And after you train, your body needs to replenish the glycogen stores. So you should have, again, high protein and high carbs. So try and eat your calories around your training time, and that way you're gonna be able to maximize muscle growth. And step number 3 is to consume a minimum of 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight per day. And the rest of the carbs and fats can be, the ratio can depend on what you prefer. So for me, I prefer a higher fat ratio because it just makes me feel better. I feel like my testosterone levels are higher and I perform better in the gym. Now this depends on you and your body. So if you should experiment first, and if you prefer higher carbs, it makes you feel better and you can perform better in the gym, then go for higher carbs. But then you can also go for higher fats if it's the opposite way around. So just experiment with your own body, do both higher carbs, higher fats after you get 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, and then you'll find out what works best for you. Okay, so now let's take examples of these strategies and implement it into real world scenarios, right? So for someone who trains in the morning at 7 a.m. and who has a 9 to 5 job, then you should eat the first meal 1 hour before at 6 a.m. Now I know that sounds tricky because in the morning you don't feel like you want to eat, but you don't want to train fasted either when you're trying to build muscle. So I would say have a breakfast where you don't feel too bloated, you don't feel too heavy, but at the same time gives your body enough energy and enough nutrients so you can push hard in the gym. And I would suggest to have a high protein, high carb breakfast so that you have enough energy and you can really push yourself in the gym so that you can build as much muscle as possible. So step number 2 is that the second meal should come after you train around 9 to 10 a.m. So say you train around 7 a.m, you finish 8:30, then your second meal should come directly after. Now it should also consist of high protein and high carbs so that your body can replenish those glycogen stores after your training session, and high protein allows your body to start the rebuilding process of the muscle. Now step number 3 is to split up your calories depending on the rest of your day. So say you've had your first 2 meals, it's now 10 a.m. and then I would say to finish eating at 6 or 7 p.m. just so your body has time to digest all the food before you go to bed. Otherwise you're going to have interrupted sleep at night and you won't be able to sleep properly. So I would say cut off your eating by 6, 7 p.m. at night. And that gives you 8 hours to get your last 3 meals in, and dividing 8 by 3 is about just over 2.5 hours between each meal. So I would say have a meal every 2 to 3 hours, and that way you're going to maximize your muscle protein synthesis and you're going to be able to maximize your muscle growth as well while you're on the bulk. Now let's talk about if you're someone that trains in the evening after work, so say around 6 p.m. So step number 1, I would say eat a light breakfast and have the breakfast a little bit later in the day. So eat a light breakfast. And the reason for this is because if you have a lighter breakfast, that means you're going to save more calories for the rest of your day and towards the end of your day. And if you're training towards the end of your day, then it's going to be more beneficial for you to have your calories again around your training time. So that's why I say eat a light breakfast and eat your breakfast a little bit later around 8, 9 a.m. Start your eating window around 8, 9 a.m. So step number 2 is again to split up the rest of your calories depending on the day. So I would suggest eating still between every 2 to 3 hours, because that's going to help maximize your muscle gains. So eat every 2 to 3 hours. Yeah, that's going to help maximize your muscle gain, and you're going to be able to maximize your muscle protein synthesis that way as well. And step number 3 is to actually eat a heavier meal before you train, and I would say 1 to 2 hours before you train, and then have a lighter meal after you train, because you don't want to have a heavy meal after your training, which will be around, if you say you go to the gym around 6 p.m. and you finish around 7:30 p.m., come home around 8, 9 p.m., eat a heavy meal at 8, 9 p.m., you're not going to be able to sleep properly because your digestion is going to be messed up basically. So you want to have a heavier meal before you train and then have a lighter meal before you go to sleep. And that way your digestion will be much better and you'll be able to sleep properly at night. So heavier meal before training. Oh, my handwriting is rubbish. Right, yeah, so have a heavy meal before training, and again, stick to high protein, high carbs for both pre-workout and post-workout. And that way you're gonna optimize your muscle building potential. All right, so now let's talk about how you should eat if you're on a cut. Now, step 1 is to eat 3 to 4 meals a day, 4 meals maximum. And that's because the more meals you eat during the day, the more hungrier you tend to feel. So if I eat more meals in the day, I start to feel more hungry. And that's why I say to try and eat between 3 to 4 meals maximum. That way you won't end up snacking or eating more calories than you need to. And that brings me on to step number 2, which is try intermittent fasting. Now, ever since I started intermittent fasting, I feel amazing and I've gotten a lot leaner. During my fast, I don't feel hungry, and that's because my insulin levels are lower. And that, again, keeps me away from binging or eating more calories than I need to. So try intermittent fasting, and yeah, if it works for you, then stick to it. Try and have an eating window of 8 hours, 8 to 9 hours, and fast for the rest of the time. And step number 3 is to eat around your training window and eat a high protein diet. Make sure your diet is high protein, and that's going to help you, that's going to keep you feeling more satiated, and that way you won't crave more food, and it'll keep you feeling more full throughout the day, so that you don't end up binge eating and over consuming your calories. And now here are the examples on how you should eat when you train. So again, if you train in the morning, then I recommend eating again at 6 a.m. and then again directly after training. Now, if you're doing just cardio, then you can do fasted cardio and eat afterwards. But if you're doing heavy resistance training, then I still recommend eating before your workout so your body is filled with the nutrients it needs. And step number 2 is to finish eating, I would say, by 3 to 4 p.m. max. So if you're doing intermittent fasting, and if you're starting to eat at 6 a.m., then try and lock off eating by 3 to 4 p.m. And if that brings me on to number 3, if you feel hungry before bed, then just have some water, like down a liter of water, and it'll actually keep you feeling satiated, and that way you won't need to binge and, again, over-consume your calories. So those are the 3 steps if you train in the morning. Now, if you're someone that trains in the evening, then I would suggest start to eat later in the day. So fast in the morning, and then start to eat maybe around, if you train around 6 p.m., start eating around 12 p.m., 1 p.m. So start eating later, eat later in the day. Yeah, so break your fast around 12, 1 o'clock. And number 2 is to have the heaviest meal again before you train. So eat biggest meal before you train. No, before training. So you want to have a lighter meal when you break your fast, and then have your heavier meal 1 to 2 hours before you train, and then again a lighter meal at night. And that way you're going to get a lot of your nutrients in before you start training and around your training window, and then you'll have a lighter meal before you go to bed, so that way you won't have all sorts of digestion issues. And step number 3 is, again, just to down some water if you feel hungry. So if you feel hungry in the morning, then just drink a lot of water. You should be drinking a lot of water regardless, but when you do feel hungry, then drink even more water, so you feel less hungry, more satiated, and you won't then consume more calories than you need to. So guys, those are my tips on meal timing and how you can strategize the bulking and cutting process to build the most muscle and burn the most fat. Guys, if you enjoyed the video and found it helpful, then drop a like. If you're new to the channel, then please subscribe and hit that bell notification, because I'm going to be releasing 2 new videos every single week just like this, and you don't want to miss them. And remember, stay natty, stay clean, and peace.